Today I'm joined for our first in-person podcast, so you'll see that we're in a pretty nice fancy office, and that's because I'm here with Justin Green of Growth Factor. How you doing, Justin?
Hey, thanks for having me, Joe.
Absolutely, thank you for coming on. So just so everyone knows, I really am grateful to meet a lot of good people in this industry, people that I get along with. Justin and I hit it off straight away when we first met. It's actually at an event for Rachel Jacobs' e-commerce partnership summit, and we both share a lot of common interests. We're both men of God. Our wives get along really well, which is always a good sign. Happy wife, happy life. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Tell us a little bit about Growth Factor and your journey. I mean, you've had a very extensive journey in the digital marketing space, in the website development space, in the agency space, but particularly in the niche that you love and we both share a love of. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I originally started Growth Factor, sort of a consultancy, sort of helping some brands on the side when I was a C-suite executive at another agency out of Florida, and kind of cut my teeth. Coming out of college, I kind of got thrown in the deep end. Started a marketing role for Le Mans World Challenge team.
Yep.
And we worked alongside the Le Mans series, but we also worked on developing marketing collateral packages to sell products throughout dealerships. And so kind of cut my teeth there. Wasn't really my thing. At least I didn't think it was, and didn't really think I was making enough money as a early 20-something. I wanted to be making, so went into banking, which ended terribly in 2009 when the market collapsed.
Oh yeah.
Wound up without a job for over a year, and kind of came out of that. Went back into a little bit of automotive marketing. Kind of had a little consultancy with a friend of mine. We were helping aftermarket tuner shops kind of do their thing, and then that rolled into me having my own business. Got real heavy into triathlon. Kind of had to learn to cut my teeth with my own business, how to market, how to get clients, athletes, that sort of thing, and then started doing some writing for Triathlete magazine. Moved here, had a relationship with a company called Roca, started working there. We were like kind of the predominant figure in the wetsuit eyewear space for triathlon, but we were starting to delve into making ballistic eyewear for military application to go against Oakley, and that's when I met a guy named Tim Kennedy. Kind of transitioned from working at Roca, going over to Sheepdog Response, was there for about 4.5 years. Kind of helped grow that company from a pretty small 6-figure to a multi-7-figure company.
Yeah.
A lot of firearms instruction, combatives instruction with civilians, law enforcement, that sort of thing. But what really kind of made me go headfirst back into marketing was when we decided to go the e-commerce route to be able to sell gear. And we were presented with a lot of non-traditional challenges being in that space, right? And so it kind of felt like an unfair uphill battle because the industry was sort of ostracized from being able to work with traditional big tech solutions. Shopify didn't play friendly, all this kind of stuff. So we really went and started to kind of figure out, okay, how do we do this and give ourselves the best chance of success? And so kind of, doing that exercise for a couple of years, got really proficient at how do I do a lot with little, but then how do I do it holistically so that everything ties together? Because a lot of people relied on one silo, one sector. Omnichannel wasn't a really big thing yet, but we really heavily had to rely on that to be able to survive and grow in that space. And so had some success there, wound up leaving there, got recruited by an agency in Tampa to come in. They were really hungry to try and grow. We realized that there was a large opportunity in the sort of this Second Amendment 2A space to kind of go after not just manufacturers of rifles and pistols, but even just the tactical space in general. Absolutely. So I went there to grow their portfolio. When I joined, they kind of, were pretty small. They were a small 5-figure agency, and we grew them to just shy of $5 million. Nice. Was ready to kind of at that point after it was like, have done this repeatedly for other people, grown businesses, kind of time to go off and do my own thing. So my CMO there and I decided to leave, go start our own agency. That was, and so we took what I had already started as a consultancy kind of on the side. We decided to actually incorporate, start a partnership, grow the brand. That was February of last year, and here we are today.
Yeah, and I mean, from everything we've spoken about offline, you guys have seen some really incredible growth in such a short period of time. For the audience, I just want to clarify and say, obviously I know a lot of people in this agency space, and I think the numbers and the growth that you're having and the client success is incredible. No no small feat whatsoever. Having owned an agency in Australia,
Yeah.
as we've discussed, I know that it is not an easy feat, but the growth that you're having is insane, which is a testament to the work you're doing. I want to dive in a little bit more, on kind of some of the points you mentioned. We know that, traditionally Shopify hasn't played too nicely in this two-way space. We're seeing that rule is changing. They're opening up. They're getting rid of some of those restrictions in the shop and tactical space. How is that kind of working with the merchants that you work with in this space? Are you finding a big, exodus from, platforms that have traditionally been two-way friendly to now everyone's sort of saying, hey, we want to go on to Shopify? Or is that more of a slower kind of a cascading effect? Or
I think it's a slightly slower cascading effect. I think what you're seeing is there's still a lack of trust. Because for a long time, there was this kind of gray area. If you got into Shopify earlier and you're in that space, let's say you were a holster company, for instance, there was, you would see a lot of companies come in, they would operate for a little while, and then all of a sudden, like Shopify would just lock them up. Or not even just Shopify, a lot of different platforms. And it's not the technology's fault. I think the paradigm shift you see politically every 4 years with changing administrations and the pressure that's put on them from the political side to operate in a certain way.
Yes.
You've seen even we run digital paid media, you even see it in the ad space, right? So you've seen a big shift in the way Zuckerberg and Meta handle ads right now. They're starting to kind of ease off the pressure on companies. So let's say you have a tactical company that sells accessories. Well, previously you couldn't even show firearms in there in those ads. Now you're starting to see they can be present as long as they're still not part of your catalog, right?
Wow, okay.
And
I wasn't aware of that.
So you're starting to see some of that. So I think a lot of it is just knowing how, and having been in this over the years, is understanding how to kind of watch those trends and cycles and being able to adapt. I think that's the big thing, is being able to adapt and always having solutions. So if we have a e-commerce brand in that space we want to work with, there's some options and platforms now. And some of them, they may want a fully custom solution, built not on Shopify, because maybe they are just like B2G, they sell to the government.
Yeah.
And they're not concerned about having something like Shopify because they're not a consumer-driven company.
Yes. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think from the way that I view it as someone who's immigrated here and gone through all of that process, I think the two-way industry really is such an important industry for America. It's most of the time it's American manufactured. It's creating jobs. There's so much cool creativity that comes out of it, and it's a part of the amendment. So I don't think it's ever going to, go away or shift away. But I'm glad that organizations like Shopify are really enabling this American manufacturing in a way, which I think hasn't necessarily been, how things have been in the past. It's predominantly been, your Magentos or your BigCommerces. I think we're going to see more of them open up even more, if I'm honest, and potentially from the sounds of things, maybe Meta opening up a little bit more as well.
Yeah, and it's I think it's a really interesting place to have started from, right? Because again, you have to be good at solving problems and finding solutions, which makes it when we work out. So we have a number of companies in that space, but then we also have some quick service restaurants with over 100 locations. We've got apparel companies, men's health companies, that kind of stuff that we're working with. It makes that much easier, because if you can solve the problems of some of the hardest regulated companies and still help them navigate growth, find customers, provide a good user experience, it's that much easier to do on what I would call the low-hanging fruit, like the things that we know everybody needs but are not regulated.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I just want to, on a personal level, dig in a little bit more around the sheepdog stuff. Like, you and I have been to the range, you've taught me some stuff. It's very impressive, your skill set. Tell me a little bit more about what that looks like, being someone who has a high, skill set, knows what people are looking for from a gear perspective and an accessories perspective, or any of that sort of front, and then marketing to more of that audience that you were probably teaching as well, right? Did you find that the offline kind of interaction with people in these classes and in this teaching environment products and everything should be marketed and sold.
Yeah, so it's interesting, like being the tokens. So I've been in this, like, what I would say is a very privileged, very fortunate position where I've always been the token civilian. I was like the guy that got very lucky to work with, like, a lot of, special operations guys, a lot of, operator. I've worked with guys like Tim Kennedy, Luke Kilgren, Cameron Tor, a bunch of other guys in a bunch of different capacities, both in business and in training. And the thing that's always been interesting being the civilian is that, like, in a competitive shooter, is that I come to it from there's this disconnect sometimes between the guys that come from the military world. They come in and they try to do training, run training businesses and all that kind of stuff. And then when you're trying to create products to an end user who are law enforcement, it applies a little bit more, but the civilian market, there's a lot of considerations you have to make. When you're trying to determine how do I educate this consumer on what they're buying, why they want it. Maybe these even be designed differently. There's different use cases, and then more importantly, it's developing that trust. Like, we're not just selling you this thing because we use it. We're going to sell you the thing that's best for you, because, like, the reality is, like, you're going around the world as a civilian. You're not in a war zone, so, like, what do you really need? Is it a fanny pack so that when you're the dad at the beach, you have, like, your wallet, your keys, and maybe your personal carry, whatever it is, so you can protect your family? I've been real fortunate that I had a number of years. I've shot competitively for about a decade now. Have been an instructor now since 2018. Done combatives and firearms instruction, and been able to kind of tie some of that world into this world. And how do we help brands? How do I take my expertise on that end and help these brands figure out how to engage their audience and develop trust, and make sure that they're listening to what that audience actually wants, but not just giving them what they want, but what they need, finding that kind of middle ground.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I think, the interesting thing since moving here, I've, in my life, attracted people like yourself who have become friends, and I've got friends who are ex-Rangers and, a couple of SEAL buddies at the gym and stuff now. And I think the one common thing, and I'm sure you've seen this a lot, is like those guys apply the absolute highest levels of insurance and perseverance to business. And I don't think I've ever seen one of them set their mind to something and not conquer it. Like, the level of discipline and the level of, like, business acumen that they tend to have is just incredible. And I think, pairing up with Growth Factor and yourself, for an example, it's like the perfect matrimony, because it's like you can translate all of that digital skill set, you understand their world to a degree, and then you can help them push that to, even further down civilians such as myself, who don't necessarily have as much knowledge on that. So it's really interesting to see that, and that seems to be a really common kind of, like, personality trait with these guys, right? Like,
it totally is. My business partner, Cameron Tor, is a pretty well-known former Ranger. Started a well-known knife company called Tor Knives years ago. Yeah. He's exited that. He's got 2 other business ventures now, and then we're partners in this. And the one thing I've learned with working with all these guys at that level is that quitting is not an option, and they're really great at problem solving. So, like, they may not have all the answers, they may not succeed at everything, but they're sure as hell not going to quit. Yeah. And that I think in business will outpace 99% of your competitors, because the majority of society, when things get real hard, they don't want to stay up till 1 a.m. to work. They don't want to give up their Saturdays. They want to go have fun. I can't even tell you how many nights in the last year I've worked till 1 a.m. to, like, kind of get it done. And I have a responsibility to my clients, and I have a responsibility to the people that we employ. And I have a vision that my partner and I have built for the next 3 to 4 years that, like, failure is just not an option for us. We just don't quit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, on a lesser side, well, not on a lesser side, I mean, my dad had, like, an incredible law enforcement and military career in Australia, and I think from my side of things, that was always embedded into me too. It's like, if you quit what you're doing, you have to live with the consequence of that, and it shouldn't be something you do. And I think for me, it's like when I built my agency, that was what came first in every aspect of my
quitting becomes easier.
Yeah,
Second time and the third time, because that doubt is back there now, and but you know it's easy to get into it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I'm glad that I had those values instilled at a young age. I mean, with my agency, with my career now in SaaS, I think it's like I have always been, Growave is a great example with the time difference, like our headquartered office. Everyone there can attest to this. I'm on the line at 3 a.m. in the morning, you know what I mean? Then I'm going to gym. Then I'm doing everything that I need to do on an American time zone. Then I may even jump on in the evenings to be able to cater to APAC or back with the head office. So it's like, I think that sort of like thing is very common, obviously in that world that we're talking about, but also in agency land, right? Like it's like, so you're a different breed being in the agency land.
Yeah, our old agency, we had 3 offices. One was in Warsaw, Poland, and so we had some funky hours sometimes to get projects done and delivered. Just as kind of the nature of the beast, but I wouldn't have it any other way because it's a new challenge every time. It's fun, and honestly, I love working with people. So I consider it a privilege. Like at this point, like it's a lot of people don't understand. Like, yes, is it stressful? Is it a lot of late nights? Is it a lot of giving up? Is it a lot of sacrifice to build an agency and grow your own thing? Absolutely, but it's also the level of reward, seeing building something where you're helping provide for other families, other people, you're helping other businesses succeed by providing them good service. That's something that makes you sleep good at night when you sleep maybe even if it's only 5 hours.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like quality sleep, not long sleep. Absolutely. Cool. So one other thing I kind of want to chat about is obviously we're hearing all sorts of stuff in the market at the moment around tariffs and all of those sorts of things. I know that being a lot of the brands that you're working with American manufactured, obviously ITAR, can you explain ITAR really quickly for everyone just around that, because I know you work with some ITAR products.
Yeah, so a lot of it's just to keep it very simple. It's the restriction of export of certain goods and items that are regulated. Specifically, typically in like the body armor, the weapons space, that kind of stuff, and following in accord with a set of rules that restrict what you can and can't send out of the country.
Yes, yeah. So on that note, and the reason why I wanted to bring that up is like I know some of the brands you work with are doing ITAR sort of stuff, and it may be direct to public, but a lot of it direct to the government. So it's a lot of coming back to this American-made manufacturing that we spoke on. So sometimes tariffs won't necessarily affect those merchants as much because it's all got to be American-made. What is kind of the main thing that's happening in the industries that you work with at the moment, particularly around e-commerce? Is it, there's more and more opportunity because things like Meta are opening up and Shopify are opening up, or is there particular things that are just happening in your market in particular at the moment?
So I am seeing like there's an ability to do more advertising in the tactical space now, but if we look at it in a broader sense right now, speaking of tariffs, so the thing is kind of getting ahead, having an understanding and having a plan in place and being a strategic partner with the companies you work with. So it's not just, a lot of agencies, I think we saw a lot of these agencies during COVID actually sort of fall by the wayside because they were set it and forget it shops. They weren't really strategic partners and they weren't really serving their clients. They were just collecting dollars and running ads unsuccessfully and kind of, those agencies, I think a lot of them are no longer in business.
Yes.
But, tariffs, for instance, we've seen that in the last 2-3 months where that's been a big talk. A lot of it's getting ahead, reaching out to your partners, having a very transparent conversation with them. Hey, here's what this looks like. If these tariffs hit, we know that we're bringing our products in from this country. This is what the increase in cost is going to be. Here's what it looks like on your return on ad spend. Here's how it's going to impact your bottom line. Let's talk about some strategies. We could if we know that we have these campaigns coming up in the next 6 months. Why don't we figure out if we can increase our order quantity on the next couple POs, and instead of slow loading them to save a little cost, let's get them on a plane, get them here quick, stay land before any of that takes place, to kind of hedge ourselves against any of this what may be occurring. And it's just having those plays and being able to provide some recommendations and guidance that are outside of what would typically be your scope of work, maybe on that engagement agreement, and understanding how you can help solve a problem in the bigger picture.
Yeah, so like it comes back to, I think, the ethos that I'm hearing from Growth Factor. It's like we really are a partner in your business. It's not just, hey, we build websites, or hey, we run ads. It's like you are offering all of your strategic guidance and experience that, yes, some of those functions may exist, but it's the overlaying level of support and guidance that really is the key growth factor part of the pump.
Yeah, so we don't pretend that we're not a full service agency. We don't pretend to be. We do stay in our core competencies, but that doesn't mean we're not willing to work to find solutions or find other additional partners to bring into the mix if we need to provide a solution.
Yeah.
Because we really believe in a holistic omni-channel approach, because in today's competitive environment, it's gotten more competitive than ever.
Oh, yeah.
The ad space is more saturated with dollars and ads than ever. There's more channels now than ever. There's more consumers now than ever. And it's becoming, ever increasingly more difficult to get attention.
Yes.
And then find solutions like, you have a brand, if they're doing $20-30 million a year, if their conversion rate is, for whatever reason, taking a hit and they're down 0.1%, that's real dollars they're losing day over day. How do we help find a solution to that? How do we answer that call to make sure that we're serving them? If we can't do it, we will bring somebody in to help with that solution.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. And I think it speaks volumes of your ethos and the way you approach things. Tell me a little bit more about what's one standout particular merchant that you're, we've spoken a lot about problem solving, things you're working on for them. You don't have to name names if you don't want to, but give us a little bit more insight onto a relevant kind of merchant that you're working on at the moment and the way you're approaching the problem solving aspect for them.
Yeah, so I'll give you a really good example actually that kind of came out on Friday. So I got an email from the president of a quick service restaurant that we work with. We're partners on the website development side of the house. We do all their digital infrastructure maintenance. We run all their digital paid media as well throughout the U.S. For all their stores and franchisees and stuff. We got asked to provide sort of a 2-pager on us and the deliverables and the results we have provided them over the last 12 months, because they're going to the Loyalty 360 Expo in Orlando the end of this month, and they wanted to showcase us and the work we had done for them because they had really good results, which humbled me a lot, because I'm like, compared to this $200 million conglomerate, I don't feel like in anybody, but the fact that you have reached out to me to recognize our agency and our people's work spoke volumes. And so where that kind of came in is we originally met them about February of last year, took over maintenance of their website, and then strategically proposed a new website build to be able to better represent the brand, because they've been working with a company called Norton to sort of do a rebrand on the company side throughout the United States for all their storefronts.
Yeah.
And so we thought that was a really good time to take that brand image that they were kind of redeveloping and then figure out how to build a whole new digital infrastructure and digital presence to really optimize and put themselves in a position to be able to scale for the next 3 years. They are one of Inc. 500's Inc. 5000's fastest growing. I think they're in the top 100 something in the U.S. And they've got about 160 store locations now. And so one of the areas where we were really strong is we were able to skyrocket their domain ranking and really grow the organic side, which allowed us to then be much more strategic and conservative with their ad dollars, because there's this balance between the more organic traffic we can drive through a better digital presence, the less reliant we have to be. We can use ad dollars to scale, but we don't have to depend on them.
Yeah.
And so it's finding that balance, and that was a win for them and a win for us, because then we were able to take some of the emphasis off paid ads to create brand awareness in markets they already existed in, and then start to shift some of those dollars, allow those existing markets to be driven by organic traffic, and then shift those dollars to brand awareness in new markets where they didn't have a presence in other states. We'll start to get franchisees, franchise development, and new customer traffic.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, we back in my agency days, we worked with Orange Theory Fitness on their launch into Australia, and work directly with the US head office to do that. And the franchisee stuff is always fascinating to me from a marketing perspective because it's like the approach you take on a paid ad campaign is going to be so different as opposed to attracting pre-sign-ups for that versus then trying to find sophisticated buyers to then become franchise wars in that. So it's a really interesting space, that space.
Yeah, well, it becomes even more interesting. So during that process, we found that one of their asks was, "Hey, okay, we feel like we've kind of stretched it thin on getting the mom and pop like one single store franchisee. We want to go after a more sophisticated investor now that maybe wants to franchise 3 to 5 stores at a time, right? So that's now we're talking a totally different, ideal, client, right?
Yes.
So they're looking for somebody that's got substantially more liquidity, net worth. So then you have to become much more like dialed in on who exactly you're going after. And so now we've gone as far as like we're working on that effort on the digital side with a company called Hot Dish that they work with. Their sole deal is franchise development. And so again, that comes back to like that's a great example of working with multiple different agencies to serve the client the best way possible so that they have the best outcome. Because at the end of the day, if the client's winning, they will stay loyal to you, you'll continue to work with them, and you reduce your churn big time as an agency.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that, once again, it comes back to that really, key factor, the growth factor has, where it's like, we partner with you, we problem solve, and we figure it out, and we use our network to do so as well. So that's awesome. Justin, tell me a little bit more about sort of like what your future plans are with the business, what you see kind of happening this year growth-wise. I mean, with guests that I have a good banter with, which we obviously do, I like to, think that we're going to be able to record another one of these in the next 6 to 12 months. So I'd love to sort of be able to look back at this and say, hey, you reached those goals. So what are, the goals that you're comfortable sort of sharing out loud with the audience for Growth Factor?
Yeah, so we're, it's kind of funny, we're actually at a pretty, what I would think is an aggressive growth curve right now without taking on any debt or outside investment. We're an 8-person team right now. Our run rate right now, we're on track to do about $1.5 million this year. My goal is to go from 8 to 15 people by the end of the year. That may accelerate that revenue growth plan. We really want to focus, like right now, we currently have our pipeline on dev backed up to about the end of Q3 on commitments already.
Yeah.
So we're slowly strategically trying to roll up the right developers. But the one thing I am very committed to is getting the right people on the bus, finding people that fit the culture.
Yeah.
My business partners and I, Cam and Kate, are very adamant on slow to hire, quick to fire.
Yeah.
So like we kind of slow roll the hiring process to ensure they're the right fit, they're committed to the vision, and then we want to be able to give them an offer that makes it compelling and be able to roll them on and keep them, right? Because it's expensive to hire people. So our goal would be to have 15 people by the end of the year. We want to try to double our ad spend under management right now. So we're just a hair over $5 million in ad spend under management. Our goal is to get to about 10 million because that silo of the business provides us a pretty decent margin that allows us to go off and bring in some other revenue streams, focus on building some internal SaaS solutions and stuff where we can take a little area of risk. But more importantly, it just gives us the cash flow to really look at our 24-month plan, which we've already sort of built out, and know that we have the cash flow to go recruit top talent. And so that's kind of our goal. I mean, strategically, our goal is to build this up about 5 years and be in a position where we feel like we have something that's attractive to a potential buyer.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. I have no doubt you'll reach those goals. I mean, in our offline discussions, I know that you're well and truly on that growth trajectory. So congratulations on all of that success. And lastly, I'd like to ask everyone this. It's kind of like, obviously in the shot and tactical space, you're traveling a lot. We were just talking about, Montana and how beautiful it is up there and the trips you do there and Vegas and all of this. And then obviously in the e-com world and agency world, there's so much more travel as well.
Yeah.
So we're spending a lot of time on the road in each of our, relative spaces. What's something, and you can't say a person because I know you'll say your lovely wife, what's something you can't live without, when you're traveling, when you're here in the office, when you're at home, like what is the one thing, you know, it could be a book, it could be, you know, a personal item, but what's something you can't live without when you're traveling?
Man, when I'm traveling, I was gonna say like most of the time, like that's a tough one. Honestly, like this may sound ridiculous, but I'm a connoisseur of really good coffee. When I travel, I like to find the best coffee shop in town and go try it out.
Yeah,
If that sounds ridiculous.
No, not at all. I'm from Australia. We're all coffee snobs. So
Well, for me, coffee is conversation, culture, people. Like it's not about the coffee itself. It's like everywhere I've traveled, like because I came from a cycling background growing up. I raced until I was 22, and did so at the amateur pro level right out of high school. And for me, it's about the experiences that you like. You sit down, and you listen. Like I love watching, and observing people and meeting people. And some of the best interactions and some of the best people I've ever met have been over a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And so for me, that is it's the experience.
Yeah. No, I love that, and yeah, you'll never get any crap from me being a coffee snob, because I am too. It was interesting when I was, you know, making the decision to come to the US and move away from Australia. It was one of my biggest fears was, you know, obviously over the years coming to the US, the coffee's gotten a little bit better over the years, and I would argue that there's some amazing coffee, you know, particularly where we are, because we're both in the hill country of Texas. But I was a little bit worried about that, you know, because in Australia, you know, I'm sure you'll see when you go, there's just streets and streets, like every major CBD, there's just rows and rows and rows of coffee. Yeah. It's only marginally better in some places, but the standard is so high. Whereas I find in the US, there's some places that are incredibly good, but it's because some of the places aren't so good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
it reminds me of that scene from Elf where he goes into that little crappy cafe and it's like, Rose, pass a cup of coffee. You're like, not really.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We live in an area that's really unique for, you know, craft distilleries, craft beer,
Yeah.
craft coffee,
Yeah.
craft experiences.
Yeah.
I will tell you though, I lived in San Francisco, the Bay Area, for about 10 years. That's where my daughter was born. And I miss going and sitting in North Beach. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's the Italian district there.
Yeah.
Some of the best cafe experiences I've ever had in the United States.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah, okay. I'll be sure to check it out for sure. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much.
I
So,
appreciate
as
it.
always, it's great to be on and great to have
I
you
appreciate
on.
you having me on.
Yeah, appreciate our friendship, appreciate our partnership. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more of these episodes, and obviously, you know, Growave and Growth Factor, it kind of makes sense that we're working together.
Yeah.
We share similarities in the names, so super excited for this partnership, and thank you so much for coming on.
Excellent. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Retain, Grow, Thrive. If you want to connect with Justin and the team at Growth Factor, all of the links that are relevant are going to be in the show notes. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.